Bill O'Brien says Boston College is on the right path. Well, they're going to have to get a lot further on that path if they're going to beat Clemson on Saturday.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I'm the host of the show, and I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want the Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda. Move and be moved. On today's show, we're going to give our predictions on the Clemson game. We're going to talk about the Tigers. Are they too much for the Eagles? And BC, they're supposedly on the right path. How far along on that path are they? And do they need to get a lot further to beat the Tigers? And we're going to talk about that with makeup-less, joker-less Mitch Wolf. Mitch, how's it going?
Back to normal. Going to keep it straight and narrow this week. And again, luckily, a game against Clemson, there's really nothing to freak out about, considering it is probably going to go the way we expect, the way that Vegas has it. But now I'm concerned about games down the road where if things don't go the way they're supposed to, then it's like I'm not sure if I can really top that.
Yeah, you've set the bar so high. I don't know where to go from here. Like,
I think it would be things that would probably get us deplatformed. So
yeah, we're not going to go down.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Okay. So before we get into Boston College, we're recording this on Thursday night. The first availability report is out, and I'm gonna, crack my knuckles.
More like the unavailability report,
and let me do a little reading of who is questionable for the game. Ready? Max Tucker, Ashton Cunningham, Quintavious Hutchins, Vaughn Pemberton, Amari Jackson, Cameron Martinez, TJ Green, Zach Kelly, Pelaway Foa, Sterling Sanders, Quan Williams, Kevin Klein, Mekhi Byerson, Owen Stodmeyer. And out, Davian Crouch, Jaden Skeet, Jonathan Montague, Jalen Blackwell, Syer Torrance, Marcellus Townsend, Will Graves, and Danny Edgehill. There's our injury report presented by AJ Black.
Missed our probables, but I feel like those usually have gone.
They always play.
Yeah, they pretty much have always played so far. I mean, it's good. Some of the guys moved from out to questionable. I think, namely, Amari Jackson, I guess, was questionable last week as well, but ended up not playing. But that seems to be going in a positive direction, which is good. You just have a lot more names added there, so you hope that they are ready to go because this group is, especially the defense, I guess, is just so banged up. You're playing guys who are, were fourth or fifth on the depth chart to start the year. And if you look at most teams, if you have to do that, that whatever side of the ball it is, it's going to be worse. You look at how this happened to the offensive line in 2022, they were automatically worse. They were one of the worst units in the country. And that seems to be the trend happening with this defense. And of course, they are rewarded for it by having to face Clemson, who, even though they are not the Death Star of previous years, they're still a really good football team with tons of talent.
Yeah, and I was talking to the Clemson. If you listened to yesterday, I did a crossover with Locked On Clemson host, and he was talking to me about how things have not gone Clemson's way. And I was like, yeah, well, welcome to my world. BC has not gone, it seemingly hasn't gotten any breaks. In what way could BC stay in this game?
I think you kind of have to empty the bag of the kind of, for lack of a better term, like BS tricks, kind of on both sides of the ball. And on offense, when I was watching Clemson, I think that the best way to get them is with like misdirection stuff. You saw not as much LSU, but they did it a little bit, but definitely Georgia Tech and definitely Syracuse. They ran a lot of kind of misdirection plays, kind of some counter screens where you think the screen's going to one guy, it goes to another, reverses, end arounds, jet sweeps, that kind of stuff. You got to use their speed against them because they flow very well as a defense, but that can allow them to over pursue sometimes. So you also see them struggle against runs that cut back. So your outside zones where the running back cuts it back up the middle, you see some issues with that. But you need to be able to hit those because if you're just trying to match them with athleticism, size, and strength, you're not going to win. And most teams are not going to win, in Boston College is among most teams in this case. So you need to find unique angles, unique ways to get after them when you have the ball, because you're not going to be able to win like in a straight up fight there. You need to, pull out some tricks. On defense, I mean, they tried the zone, don't blitz approaches as much against Pitt. They've obviously done the man and blitz a ton for the first few games, and neither has really worked that great. Watching Cade Klubnik, it's a bit of a roller coaster because there's a way where he is a little like Dylan Lonergan, where he does hold on to the ball a bit too long, where he needs to see the route come open and is struggling a bit with anticipating guys getting open. But he's a much better athlete, a much better scrambler. And when you see like a lot of Clemson's offense is designed to take advantage of that. Obviously, they use him as a designed runner a lot. They also have a lot of designed rollouts for him where they get him on the move. And generally, he just likes to hold on to the ball and scramble and find a guy late in the progression out of structure. And against a team like BC, who's so undermanned, especially in the back seven, and also just generally doesn't have as much talent as Clemson does on the outside, that's generally going to be a pretty good strategy. So I really don't have an answer for what BC can do on defense because they've tried both approaches and neither has really worked. So the only thing I can really think of is, and this I guess goes for both sides, is you just deploy a game plan and an approach that you just haven't put on film at all this year, which is very risky and you probably don't have time to install it. So it's probably not going to happen. But if you, I don't know, come out with this like a true like 3-3-5 stack like Iowa State runs, and you do like a ton of that with quarters coverage, like it might just be able to surprise Clemson for a bit, but you're probably going to make more mistakes than you make big plays just because it's not something you're doing, something you're not used to. So you're going to have some issues there.
I'm trying to think offensively. Has BC done? I can't think of any trick plays that they've done, at least that have worked. I think I can remember a few that have crashed.
They ran a end around to Reed Harris, which lost 4 yards against Michigan State. They had another kind of similar play. I think maybe it was an end around to Bond. Yeah, it was an end around Bond against Michigan State as well. They had the one, I think it was against Pitt, where they kind of motioned the guy out and they released the lineman like it was a screen to the guy motioning away from the ball, but then they threw it to Reed Harris coming back toward the ball. So those are really the only trick plays I would call it. But yeah, they haven't really done a ton of that this year. I don't think that's really O'Brien's bag. I think he's much more of a classic offense coordinator. You don't see this kind of stuff a ton. But when you're playing a team that's so much more talented than you are, especially with their defense, you need to, come up with some creative ways especially because you have not really been able to move the ball consistently with your normal offense, especially on the ground. So you got to try to find some explosive plays that way to at least give the offense some momentum and some energy. Because if you're just going 3 and out, where you're not running the ball well and you're, not completing passes, then they're going to lose energy and momentum really quickly. And that's hard to get it back, especially if the defense is struggling and you send the offense back out there in the second quarter and they're down 21-0.
Yep. Now on Thursday, Bill O'Brien was asked about Turbo Richard and the fact that he only touched the ball 6 times against Pitt,
something like that. Yeah.
And he said, "I'm going to use, we're going to fix that. He's going to be a bigger part. I'm not going to tell you what it is." I don't know what he could do differently because if he uses in the pass game, defenses are waiting on him now. We saw that in the Cal game. He had one really good pick.
In fairness, it still worked a good bit in the Cal game. Like they still got him to get a few first downs, even when he was covered pretty well on those, routes out of the back, on those like swing routes.
I just feel like Clemson's too fast.
Oh yes, but that is the case, and also Cal really keyed on it towards the end of the game when they knew it was coming. So Clemson's going to see that. They're going to know they have arguably, if not the best linebacker core in the ACC, one of the best in the country, probably with Wade Woodaz and Sammy Brown. They're excellent players. So that's not going to be a super effective strategy. If in terms of using Turbo Richard more, I think that was more just like, we need to just use him in the standard run game more. Not really. We kind of were talking like we weren't really sure why Bo McCormick was playing so much early in the game.
Yep.
So that's part of it. Again, when I wrote my film review of this game, I do think that there's something to the idea of using Jordan McDonald to soften up the defense a little bit, because he is a good, powerful runner, and he is kind of a funny player because when you look at him and you kind of naturally compare him to AJ Dillon, where he's this big, powerful runner, but he's a pretty good in the passing game, which AJ Dillon never really was. And he makes a lot of plays when he does get the ball in space where he's able to just run over defensive backs in the open field. So that's kind of a way you could work that in. The thing that I've been saying for years is that I think they could find a way to get both running backs on the field at the same time. I feel like that's something BC hasn't shown at all this year. Something Clemson might not have prepared for. You typically need a more mobile quarterback to maximize that package, but I think Lonergan he's shown it against Cal where it's like, hey, you can, if the defense doesn't account for him at all, he can pick up some yards and be effective. But that way you can, that way you can also, like, the defense has to respect the threat of a handoff to McDonald up the middle, but you could also pitch it out to McDonald on the edge of like a swing pass. So I think that's one way they could do it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I still think Trevor Richards is a very good player who deserves more touches, and I think is one of the better backs this program has had in a while.
All right, in just a moment, Mitch and I are going to continue our dive into this preview with Clemson. I want to hear Mitch's thoughts on Clemson's wide receivers versus BC's defensive backs and a few other topics that we have coming up. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Boston College, Kalen Chudzinski delivered in a big way. When BC was getting their doors blown off, it was Kalen Chudzinski that made a great catch in garbage time, but for a big-time touchdown. When the pressure was on, he came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance was a fluke. Hey, 247 just named him the top freshman tight end in the country right now. It's crazy. And just like Kalen Chudzinski delivered for Boston College, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if you hit, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel. On a Thursday night, I'm recording this on Thursday night. The Giants are playing the Eagles. I took myself the Giants at plus 7.5 with a Saquon Barkley touchdown and over 40.5. I made a parlay, super quick, did it in 2 minutes, felt good about my pick, and I'm letting it roll right now. In the way things are going, if Barkley can score a touchdown, I am in good shape. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get yourself started. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and I want to shout out all of my first listeners. Those are the people who listen to Locked On BC first listen every single day, first in the morning, first in the afternoon, first in the evening, whatever it is. If you made Locked On Boston College your first listen, thank you so much. It's been an entertaining week. And as I do ad reads trying to make good things out of BC football, I'm really hoping this weekend we'll have something that I can actually talk about, because I was really, really stretching this week. And I cannot keep picking Pitt because I feel like people are going to get mad at me.
You didn't want to highlight Seamus Florio?
No. Favorite Bate with 1 sack.
There you go.
But anyways, let's talk more about Clemson. They've got 2 dynamic wide receivers. I know you've watched a lot of film. Bryant, Wesco, and Antonio Williams. What makes them so dangerous?
I mean, they've got 3 or 4 really dynamic receivers. That's the problem, because, Williams is their slot receiver, and he's had some injury issues, so he's missed some time. But I think you look at Clemson, like, they're set up really well. They had their bye week after the Syracuse loss. Then they get UNC, who they're doing a really good job of distracting people from BC. It's like, everybody look at that dumpster fire over there. Pay no attention to this one. So they kind of got everybody healthy. They didn't have to play their starters the whole game, so everything is looking great for them. But so Williams should be back in this game. He's a very good player. But Bryant, Wesco, big, like the classic, like, Clemson X receiver. Your Mike Williams, your Justin Ross, guy who just is crazy fast, gets down the field, makes contested catches down the sideline. And then TJ Moore, another receiver there who actually leads the team in targets, has been pretty good. So they've got him. They've got Tyler Brown, another kind of slot receiver who, if I remember correctly, was big like 3 years ago, then missed some time, and then now he's back. So he's playing the other slot next to Antonio Williams, or replacing him when Williams has been hurt, but they've got all those guys. So they can beat you a ton of different ways with this receiver core. They don't play a ton of 12 personnel. They don't really use their tight ends very much, especially in the passing game. And they're actually using their running back a lot more. Adam Randall, who's a converted wide receiver, and he had some hiccups early in the year, but he's settled in. He's a big dude. He's like 6'2", 225. And they use him a lot naturally as a converted receiver. They use him a lot in the passing game. So they can really hurt you a bunch of different ways. And even if you like cover everybody well, Klubnik can kill you with his legs. So there's going to be, like, similar to the Cal game, I'm predicting there's going to be a lot of plays where BC fans are just going to be frustrated because Klubnik's going to be running around and then he's going to fling it deep and he's going to find a 6'4" receiver on a 5'10" corner who just mosses him by the side. And you're like, well, what can you do?
Yep. BC, as we mentioned in the injury report to start this show, is on the defensive side of the ball is playing. Hopefully, you'll be getting a Quan Williams and a Quintavious Hutchins back.
I mean, and the thing about that is, like, you look at Clemson's offensive line, and they've struggled a bit this year. Which, if you look at the history of Clemson, the offensive line has never really been their strength, even when they've had highly touted players like Mitch Hyatt, Jackson Carman, a few other players that have had stints in the NFL, but not very long ones. And they've had some injuries. Their left tackle got hurt, so they had to bump their left guard out. Then he got back, so they moved him back in. They've been shuffling guys around there. The interior has been pretty weak, I would say. Minus the center, Brian Linthicum is okay, and then right tackle Blake Miller is a good, not great player. He's a very good athlete, but his hand power, he's kind of similar to Jude Bowery in that way, where his hand strikes are just not very powerful. And he has trouble sustaining blocks because of it. But they have had some issues with pressure. I think their pressure allowed rate is like 37%, which is quite poor. 37.1%, which is 112th in the FBS. But their sack rate is extremely low, and that's a credit to Klubnik, who does a great job of evading pass rushers. And as we've seen with BC, they can occasionally get pressure, but they have a lot of trouble finishing those sacks by getting the quarterback to the ground. And when you put them up against Klubnik, a guy who's already very slippery, and a smaller quarterback, so a smaller target, so he's harder for you to hit, kind of, again, because he's also a good athlete. So even when you look at Clemson's quote-unquote weakness, BC is not really well positioned to take advantage of it. You could argue that BC has been actually pretty decent in run defense. Again, even against Pitt, you watch that game, a lot of times they would bow up on early downs, then they'd get killed on a third down pass. But looking at some of BC's stats against the run, they're pretty solid in that department. But you kind of just figure, okay, Clemson will take that. They'll just keep throwing the ball. And then once they're up by a ton, they'll try running. It's like, oh, if we can't pick up yards, it's fine. We're still up by 30. It's just a few interesting defensive stats for BC. They are 18th in yards before contact allowed per rush at 1.03, but they are 118th in yards after contact allowed per rush at 3.45. They're forcing a rush for 0 or negative yards on 24% of rushes, which is 67. So that's pretty solid, but they've really struggled with the explosive rushes. Yeah. And I 67, you're like literally the middle of the pack, but yep. They've had issues with explosive rushes. Their explosive rush allowed rate is 9.5%, which is 89th. So, and that goes back to the missed tackling issue.
What did you see? You're just watching back on film. How did like a Syracuse or Georgia Tech beat them?
I think a big part was like those misdirection play. I mean, I really love Georgia Tech's offense because it has just so much going on. You have a quarterback who, in Haynes King, who ironically a few years ago I said he wasn't that mobile, and then Georgia Tech completely changed their offense to just run him all the time. So he's just a workman-like quarterback where he just does everything. He runs the ball like right up the middle a ton and is pretty good at picking up yards. But they have such a creative offense that they're able to, come up with all these designer plays that, again, take advantage of Clemson's aggressiveness with these misdirection plays, with options, with screens, with these funky play action plays. So they do it by a designer offense that, frankly, BC just doesn't do. Syracuse, I think they kind of, not got lucky, but like the game script just went in their favor really early and they hit on some explosive plays. I think for them, their ability to go tempo, because you look at the Syracuse offense, they're always going at hyper speed. They're getting to the line, even when they're trying to chew the clock, like against UConn, this almost killed them. They're getting to the line with like 25 seconds left on the play clock and they're snapping the ball with like 20 left. So they're going super fast. I think that tired Clemson out a bit. And they were able to hit on some explosive plays. And that started to wane later in the game, especially when Steve Angeli went down. But they had gotten up by enough, thanks to aggressive play calling, having that surprise onside kick, that they were able to kind of just win a war of attrition. And they were up by enough that Clemson didn't have enough time to complete the comeback.
What do you think? So misdirections, I mean, and some explosives. Is there any other things that you can think of? Like, I feel like turnovers are going to have to happen. I mean,
you have to create those, and BC has struggled with that. They only have forced 3 on the season, and one of them was against Fordham. So, and the other one was on a punt return by Michigan State. Yep. So, these are not super impressive plays.
Hey, they would have had one more if Luke McLaughlin didn't target.
That's true.
Actually, they overturned it, didn't they?
Yeah,
they overturned it. And
yeah,
then
I think so. Yeah, but no, it's fine.
It was just a garbage time thing.
Yeah, no, just I mean, hey, pad the stats when you can, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing is BC is going to kind of have to, for lack of a better term, get lucky with some explosive plays that go their way. Which I was looking this up the other day. BC is one of only 5 teams in college football who have lost all of their fumbles. So they have 5 fumbles. All of them have been lost and recovered by the other team. The only other teams are Washington, Maryland, Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech, and I lost. Oh shoot, where is it? I know I have it somewhere. But yeah, so that's just an unlucky thing where the fumble luck is not going your way, and sometimes that overturns in season. So, but sometimes it's just that's your lot in life. So yeah, they're one of 5 teams, and the other 4 teams were the ones I mentioned. So, Western Kentucky's also lost all 5 of their fumbles. So all the other teams have had fewer fumbles and lost them all. So just getting some real bad luck there with how the balls are bouncing.
All right, well, that's fun to talk about. Let's get in a moment. Let's get into our predictions. Will BC be able to figure something out, or are we going to see slop, or are we going to have a close game? Mitch and I are going to give our thoughts on that in just a moment. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety picks plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of that impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets for the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. Wrapping things up here at Locked On Boston College, and we're giving our predictions. I want to shout out everyone who are all my everydayers out there who are listening to Locked On Boston College every day. You guys are my MVPs. Thank you so much if you made us your first listen as well. Now, Mitch, let's get into predictions. I already gave mine a little bit on yesterday's show, so I'll go first since I'm kind of repeating myself for our everydayers who have already heard what we had talked about. And so yesterday, I predicted pain. Clemson, the Locked On Clemson, Morgan Thomas, he had it pretty close, saying that he thinks BC is going to cover. I am on the prove it tour, where BC needs to prove it to me that they can hang in these games. I'm no longer just picking them out of hope that they're going to play well. I look at that injury list. It is scary as heck. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, that is, and this is not a team that you should be have those issues against. I don't know where these injuries are all coming from, but hopefully you get a Quintavious Hutchins back, an Amari Jackson back, because that would be huge. But regardless,
alternatively, do you kind of just understand what this game is going to be and get those guys ready for UConn?
Right. I mean, because the other option is that and not a knock on him, but you mentioned it on Monday's show, like Max Tucker looked like he had one arm and he was questionable last week and he could barely tackle.
And it demonstrably affected his ability to tackle. He had 2 plays where he just hit a guy and did not wrap up at all. And it was probably because he had that elbow brace on. So
yeah,
it's like good for the guys playing through injury, but you are very clearly affecting your team's ability to win because you're not fully healthy and you can't play football where you're supposed to.
So I don't know what the answer is there. It's a night game. That's fun. I've watched plenty of Clemson BC games that are never close. I think this is going to be one of those. I don't see BC's offense having any luck because I feel like they're going to get jammed into being one-dimensional again because I don't think they're going to be able to run on that front. So Larnigan's going to be struggling against a good Clemson defense, and I have them losing big, 38-10.
Yeah, I honestly, that was the score of the UNC Clemson game last week as well, I believe. So I'm on a similar page. I was going to ask you, and you kind of asked me, but I'll change my question a bit. What would the score need to be, or like, what's the largest deficit where you could say, okay, like they played pretty well, actually, all things considered? Like, what's a score where you would say, okay, like it went the way we expected, but there's some stuff that's decent. And obviously there need to be specifics about what actually happened. What would be a score where you're like, this was an honorable loss?
30-20. Like
Okay,
you get your offense out there a little bit. Maybe
Yeah.
you like go for a 2-point, you don't get it, and you kind of slow their offense down just a bit.
Maybe even you score like that last touchdown, like kind of like if that game it's in garbage time, so it looks better than it was. But it's like no, this was competitive. You know, it's still only 16 points something. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, because I was watching Clemson and like looking at their stats, and I'm just like trying to put together a script where BC could keep this competitive, and then I just really don't see a path. Clemson's still only favored by 14.5 at this point, which I think is bananas based on what has been going on at BC. I know it's not Clemson's best year by far, but it's one of BC's worst years. So like, I just don't really understand that whatsoever, especially with BC's injuries at this point. So I think Clemson might slow it down a bit. I feel like it's going to be like 34. I'll go 34-13. I think it's going to it's going to be rough just because, again, Clemson's so good. Their defensive line is unbelievable. Defensive tackle Peter Woods is going to be a high first-round draft pick. Defensive end TJ Parker is going to be a first-round draft pick, most likely. Their other defensive end, Will Helt, one of the first Clemson transfers ever from Purdue, is a younger player, but he's very talented. And their nose tackle on rundowns, DeMonte Capehart, is like a 6th or 7th year player who's been around forever, but he's an excellent run defender. I feel like he's going to give Michael Krauntz a ton of issues. And, you know, again, I don't expect the run game to look a lot better. I expect the offensive line to look a ton better unless they make some positional changes with what we've been arguing for weeks. So maybe you see that happen. But again, I think BC would need to get lucky with some kind of crazy plays, which, you know, some red bandana style plays, if you will. But I can't really rely on those to happen just yet. So I feel like BC loses this one by at least 3 scores. And I think you're just hoping at this point that, again, BC loses in an honorable way and doesn't get the doors completely blown off, similar to how Clemson handled UNC the previous week.
Right. You know, I would love to see them just prove me wrong, but at this point,
yeah, we all would, but like, you know,
I'm being realistic. I'm not here to just blow smoke up your butt. So
yeah.
I don't have good faith in this one. All right, Mitch, let's wrap this up. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Mitch T. Wolf, WOLF on Twitter. Check us out at Eagle Insider. Have the 2 film reviews up from the Pitt game. Defensive one was just a lot of screaming and gnashing of teeth. So that was an experience. We'll have the match report for this game up. Going to have a lot of Clemson stats and some film clips from them because at the end of the day, they are still pretty fun to watch on both sides of the ball. They're doing some interesting stuff schematically. And then we'll have the 3 preview up probably on Saturday morning because we've got a night game. So there'll be more time to read it. And then we're going to keep chugging along with this basically a nightmare of a season as far as how it's gone so far.
Yep. And we'll get to see what happens on Saturday night. I'll be there on Saturday covering from the press box with Mike Sidley. I'll be going live after the game from the press box. So join me. If it's painful, we'll talk about it. If it's fun, we'll talk about it. We'll get into whatever happened. I'll be at an Alumni Stadium there to do that live. So check that out. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so that you get all these episodes. You know, we've been here for the good. We're here for the bad. You got Mitch in makeup earlier this week. We're going to make these entertaining, I promise you. So don't just give up just because the season's been tough. We're going to make this good for you. I hope you continue to check out our show. And thank you all. We'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day.